first thing that caught my attention was the fact that the baby was clearly very, very young. Far too young to be on a flight, I thought. I'd always had it in my head that there was laws or rules against this kind of thing, because of something to do with the air pressure, perhaps. I'm no doctor, but I do think I know that a baby's head isn't fully hardened for the first few weeks. It's malleable, like clay or butter. My brother's tooth cracked into pieces on a flight once. Now imagine what could happen to a baby's skull. There was some matter on its brow. Now, it had been raining on the walk from the holding pen to the plane. It may have been that, but it seemed to be some lumpy, jelly-like substance that wobbled a bit each time someone brushed past. I was a few aisles away, but it looked like fetal detritus. Whatever it was, someone needed to give it a wipe as it was making me feel sick. The couple, who I assumed were the parents, looked very nervous. I had clocked them when they walked past me whilst I was sat at Costa Coffee. She'd looked to be limping, and his arm was supporting her from behind, quite crucially. They weren't talking to one another, just glancing erratically at what I then realised was the very small human squashed into her chest. Up and down like chickens, pecking at grey grain from the floor. The three of them, together, some silent unit of ambiguous frenzy, gliding through the airport as elegantly as a drunk through a hall of mirrors. They headed into Boots, and then I didn't see them again until they emerged from the gangway. She stumbled in and he looked busy. The two airline employees who were checking tickets designated just about the right amount of delight at seeing a newborn, but shot each other concerned looks when the couple had passed. Terror, even. And there were high-pitched, gurgling screams on takeoff, but not from the child, who I could now not stop thinking about. This one just stayed silent. The presumed mother was sat on the aisle seat and was squeezing the armrest quite considerably. From where I was, I could see the knuckles whiten. If I was closer, I'd have probably been able to feel the veins throb. Once the plane had levelled at whatever 1,000 feet, she relaxed. She hoisted the child up, so its face was now just peeking over the right shoulder. Its eyelids batting away from my squinting stare as I tried to identify some signs of life. The safer seatbelt off, bell dinged, and my first thought was to make my way to the toilet so I could get a closer look at the taut scene as I passed. I was aware that I could well have been conjuring something heinous in my head for my own entertainment, and probably not even subconsciously, but before I'd even reached for my buckle, the two of them were up and running to the toilet at the front of the plane themselves. I was startled by their velocity. It was as if they'd been generating electricity within the hamster ball-like wobble that they'd been gyrating around the airport in. No one else had gotten up, and I now realised that whatever it was I might have been speculating was perhaps about to be stoked. She handed him the baby, but instead of going in herself, he took the bundle and went into the cubicle himself. Nappy change, I thought. Or was he going to try and wipe whatever that was off its head? Quite why they couldn't have done that at any point leading up to this was beyond me, but who was I to judge? I had no experience in being a parent or knowing what effect it has on your decision making. Maybe they hadn't noticed the gloop as they were too focused on making sure their baby's first flight was the least traumatic it could be. I was starting to feel a bit foolish for fixating upon this family situation. I mean, there was probably nothing slightly strange or sinister about the whole scenario. Now, the door opens after several minutes, and he came out still holding the baby, of course, but He looked physically sick as he looked at the mother. Wide-eyed, he shook his head at her. They were locked in a horror for a split second until she looked at the floor before holding her arms out to him to hand it over to her. He did so and she bolted into the toilet herself. Now, was I the only one watching this was increased aghast? He was pacing up and down outside the toilet, clearly agitated and in some distress. She'd been in there for perhaps 10 minutes, and there were 2 others now, waiting in line. I could see him talking to them, wishing I could hear exactly how he's explaining the scene. A stewardess had become aware that there could be an issue developing and spoke with some concern to the father, who became meeker with each word landed. The door finally opened and there was the mother with child. She pushed straight through the small group who was assembled because of her and rushed straight back to her seat, whilst the boyfriend apologised with several shrugs of his shoulders. This was the first time I'd noticed that the mother and child both had hospital tags fastened on their wrists. This baby was clearly very young. He stumbled back down the plan and jumped into his seat as she fell into hers. They were hysterical, yet silent, ready to explode, yet completely at peace, resigned, yet knowing they couldn't, not just yet. They sat still for around half an hour, the baby even stiller than before, still thrust up against the right shoulder, but the expressionless face once again screaming at me to intervene. But I didn't. I couldn't, could I? The journey was so short that it wasn't long before we were told to be landing soon, and this was where your last chance was to use the onboard toilet. The apparent tranquility I hadn't taken my eyes off was instantly disrupted by this announcement, and there was panic once again. The mother bolted straight back and the baby's head lolloped to the side. Its eyes opened and they beamed deep into my now startled psyche. It gave a stifled cough as the mother rushed back down to the toilet and locked herself in before an attendant could get involved. The husband didn't follow her because he knew she didn't need him to do what she needed to do. The cubicle was hot and there was no air. The thick smell of chemicals made her feel nauseous, but this was not the only thing making her gag. Even with her eyes scrunched closed, she could see exactly what she was doing, the reality of which burned through the skin covering her eyes. Like bony bread, she pushed and pummeled, doing her best to knead dark matter into the chute, malleable, like clay or butter. One final push. The husband's head jolted back when he heard the toilet flush. The restroom light above my head went from red to green, and there was a heavy calm as she walked back to her seat, empty-handed.